It can be hard to get your big idea started, to write the first lines of code for software that will change the world, to hire the team that will make your dream a reality. That's why we built a different cloud, one that's comprehensive without complexity, that gets you up and running in minutes and stays with you every step of the way. Because simpler tools lead to happier developers, and happier developers get better results. Build with us, grow with us at DigitalOcean.
Good morning, good evening, everyone present. Very warm welcome to you guys on the launch of DO Functions, which is our serverless solution. Today, we are going to be covering a lot of ground. Today, we are going to be covering a lot about our new product, which is essentially titled DO Functions. DigitalOcean is proud to announce its new offering, its new serverless offering, a fast and scalable and a cost-effective compute solution that allows builders to focus on their code and not on managing infrastructure, and kind of enables to quickly deploy serverless applications. Without further ado, it would be awesome if everyone could just drop in a line about where they're from, and where are you coming from, what location are you from, what company are you from. Really eager to get to know our listeners. Hi, Takashi. Yeah, we're just going to wait a minute. Hey, Rick. Hi. Thank you for joining us. I understand it's quite late over there. Hi, Charles. Welcome to our launch event. Hey, Jaiman. Hi, Asif. Okay, now we have a couple of folks. I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Bidabrata Bakchi. I am the Regional Marketing Manager for APAC, Asia Pacific. I'm based out of Mumbai in India. And really happy to meet all of you guys. Hey, Eli. Awesome. Thanks, Charles. That's really good to hear. Hi, Yuki. We're just going to wait another minute for everyone to join, and then we're going to get started. For everyone who has just joined, hi, my name is Bidabrata Bakchi. I'm the Regional Marketing Manager for APAC for DigitalOcean. And welcome to the launch event of DO Functions. Basically, DO Functions, DigitalOcean Functions, is our new serverless offering. We are going to be covering a lot about the product, its different features. We're going to test out a short demo with the folks that we have here. And welcome. Hi, Stephen. Okay, I think we have about 30, 35 people here. Okay, let us get started. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Anshu Agarwal. Anshu Agarwal is the Vice President and GM of the serverless function of DigitalOcean, and who's going to kind of take a short journey about the product, its entire system, how it was developed, the thought behind it. And over to you, Anshu.
I am very excited to talk about serverless and the advantages it brings to developers and why. Today, we will show you how it is the simplest way to build and run serverless applications. Next slide, please. A bit of cloud computing history for background. Throughout its evolution, we've had multiple forms of abstraction levels. The data center, be it on-premises or provided by a vendor as a service, was the first step to the cloud as we know it today. It abstracted the physical hosting environment, and we started scaling those environments with hardware units. As virtualization evolved, we started hosting virtual machines on the cloud environments. We abstracted the hardware and used operating systems as the unit of scale. Soon after this, we built hosting environments to the cloud and abstracted the operating system. Our new scaling unit was the application. And now we've moved to functions or serverless architecture. Serverless architecture allows us to build pieces of code that do something useful and at the same time run quickly without consuming large amounts of server resources. All of these cloud models leave us with different responsibilities. Having the data center on-premise meant that we had full responsibility over everything. As we moved to the cloud, each step in the evolution left us with fewer and fewer responsibilities. And with greater level of abstraction comes greater level of automation. Next slide, please. Now let's look at why serverless has gained popularity over the last few years. Fundamentally, FaaS or serverless is about running backend code without managing your own server systems or server applications. Since there's no server applications to run, it's a huge DevOps time saving. Horizontal scaling is completely automatic, elastic, and managed by the platform provider. True pay as you go, no paying for idle capacity ever. Deployment is very different from traditional systems. So you upload your code to the FaaS provider and it does everything else. All of this results into faster development and deployment time, leading to faster time to market so you can attain your revenue goals quicker. Next slide, please. So we talked about the business benefits, but as a developer, you benefit a ton. So much higher developer productivity because applications are so much easier to develop, deploy, manage, and operate. As a developer, all you need is code business logic. Rest is all handled by the cloud provider that is managing your serverless platform. You don't need to be a cloud expert to use serverless. All you need is code business logic. A lot of development cycles are spent on security and scalability of the application. These are important aspects of the application, but it does not add any business value. With serverless, you build in inherently scalable application, which is secure by default. And last but not the least, we are living in the API economy, and serverless makes it super easy to create and consume these APIs. Next slide, please. So we talked about what are the benefits of serverless. And now let's look into what are the common serverless use cases. Most developers migrate to serverless in stages, slowly moving some parts of their applications to serverless and leaving the rest to the traditional servers. Serverless architectures are easily extensible, so you can introduce more functions as opportunities arise. There are some use cases that are extremely popular and easy to get started with. For example, serverless APIs. You can build serverless APIs, particularly Jamstack, that scale with demand. In actually later sessions today, we are going to share examples with you on this use case. Security checks. When you spin up a new container, a function can be invoked to scan the instance for misconfigurations or vulnerabilities. Functions can be used as a more secure option for verification or two-factor authentication. Trigger-based tasks. Any user activity that triggers an event or a series of events is a good candidate for serverless architecture. For instance, a user signing up on your website may trigger a database change that could initiate a welcome email. All of the backend work can be handled through a chain of serverless functions. Asynchronous processing. Serverless functions can handle behind-the-scene application tasks such as rendering product information without interrupting the flow of your application or adding user-facing latency. Automation of CI/CD pipelines. Serverless architectures can automate many of the stages in your CI/CD pipelines. For example, if you commit code that can trigger a function to create a build, the pull request can trigger automated tests. So if you look at these, there are numerous examples, and these possibilities are endless. Next slide, please. Let's shift gear on what we are talking about today, the DigitalOcean Functions. DigitalOcean Functions offer unique value to our user base. There is one unified experience to build serverful and serverless applications. As I mentioned earlier in my last slide, most developers migrate to serverless in stages, and the ability to combine long-running server-based apps with on-demand functions with an integrated experience and workflow is important. It's perfect for extending existing applications with new serverless functionality and doing so with the speed and the agility of writing functions. Applications aren't just built of functions. You may need a database, and you can easily add with a managed database in your app create flow. Connections to the database are secured by default with features such as trusted sources. We support most popular runtimes, including Node, Python, Go, and PHP. We take care of applying patches and other updates to ensure your execution environment is stable and secure, so you don't have to take care of it. So again, we believe in simplicity in all we offer, and we deliver this simplicity through our developer experience. Next slide, please. We have made your journey for serverless with a guided tour. Therefore, we made it simple where you go from discovery to development and then to production. So the first step, the Functions Cloud Console, is for getting started and introducing functions to the developers who are actually new to the serverless computing paradigm. Once you gain familiarity with this paradigm, you can test your functions before pushing it in production. You can use the CLI to develop locally with your favorite IDEs and then ship quickly to the cloud. From there, you can grow from development of functions to fully managed apps using App Platform by committing your functions to GitHub to be deployed to an app in production. So this allows you to go from just testing it out, trying it out, to all the way to production. I hope this gives you some flavor on why we are so excited about releasing this new product to you all. This is the beginning of serverless journey, and we will be adding lots of new capabilities. So we are really looking for your feedback also, as it will help us prioritize based on your needs. Thank you very much for your time, and you'll get to see a lot of demos today to give you a bit better understanding of what we're releasing. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshu. That was really insightful. For everyone in the audience, we are going to have a dedicated Q&A session towards the end of this discussion. So please park your questions. We will come back right to it. Now, without further ado, I wanted to introduce Nikhil Prakash. Just a second. Hi, Nikhil. How are you doing?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. Awesome. Doing all right. For our audience, Nikhil is the senior manager with our engineering division for the cloud functions, and he's going to be taking us through certain technical demos about this new product. Nikhil, over to you.
Thank you, Beda, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I am Nikhil. I am from Bangalore, India, and today we'll be talking about functions and how you can deploy them from the Cloud Console, how you can use the Doctal CLI to deploy the functions, look at the activations, and many of you might already have your apps already deployed on app platform in DigitalOcean Cloud, and we'll also be going over how you can add the functions component to an already existing app. So you will have an app and you can add a APIs as functions, and you can connect your apps to those APIs, and you can start. So yeah, let's get started. So I hope my screen is visible. This is my Cloud Console UI, and there's a functions tab here. And before creating any resources, I'll just walk over whatever we have here in the functions tab. So it provides you with some resources as to how you can quick start, what you can do with functions. We also we also show some key features as well, what you can do with the functions and what language and runtime we provide out of the box, and how you can develop your functions locally and what IDs support is there and everything is here. So this shows the function capabilities and also the specs. It shows you the pricing. You can see more details. The pricing. You can see the configuration for your functions, which is after deploying. It shows you the configuration as well, and also all the data centers where your functions can be potentially deployed. So let's go ahead and create a function. Let's go ahead and create a resource first. So by launching, I'm going to be creating a namespace where all my functions are going to reside, and it's by default going to know my locality, and it's going to create a namespace in that particular region. And once once the namespace is created, you can go ahead and start creating functions under those namespaces. So this is an overview. You have CLI instructions. You can prototype your functions in the source code, and you can also create a Jamstack application, and there are tutorials as well. So let's go ahead and create a functions. I will do that by clicking on the source tab and creating a new function. You have multiple. Right now we support 4 runtimes in the functions UI. You can create a hello world function name. And the package name is optional, so you don't need that right now. So let's go ahead and create a function. And as soon as a function is created, it gives you a template of the code. This is the JavaScript code, and when you click on run, the function is run. So you can see your output. It says hello stranger. So you can do it multiple times, and you can modify your code, and it's as simple as that. So not all applications require you to write the code in the editor in the UI. You might have complex projects, so you might need to. In order to do that, we have the CLI as well. So I'll demonstrate that. So before I do that, we also have logs. So whenever your functions are executed, it shows you the logs. It shows you the amount of time the logs it has taken to run the function and the versioning as well. So inside shows you the graphs. Right now, it takes time to fill in the data because I just ran the function. But after some time, it shows you the activation rate, the amount of time the graph is plotted, what is the error rate, and so on. So all this information is pretty useful when you have your application running. So let me go to the terminal, and I have the Doctal CLI already installed, and SLS is the serverless alias. You can use serverless, you can use sandbox, and by running connect, it connects, the CLI connects to my namespace. So it has connected to my namespace here, and what we can do now is we can create a project and we can deploy that. And I just want an boilerplate project. So let me create an hello world project. So SLS init will create you a directory, and it's present right here. So let's go inside the hello world, and I'll show you the structure of the project directory which is created. So you have packages and project.yaml. The project.yaml has the configuration for the environment variable. So you have the packages, and you have the function name. You have the environment you can specify, and here you have the runtime. So you can change the runtime if you change your code from Node.js to, let's say, Golang. You can specify the limits as to how long you want the function to run, what is the memory requirement, and you can control this per action and per function level. So the project.yaml gives you a entire configuration for the project in order for you to deploy your projects. And packages contain your functions. So sample is the name of the package, hello is the name of the action, and hello.js is the function, and it's just doing a hello string. So let's deploy this function. So there is already so I'll deploy it. I'm already in the hello world, so I'll just do a dot. And that's it. So the function is already deployed. And in order for you to get the function, you can do a get and the name of the function and the URL. So this gives you a public API, which you can even curl to. So this is accessible to everyone. So by doing a curl, it will print hello stranger. And with the CLI, you have a lot of control as well. So you can see the activations. So if you want to see Sls Activations List, you can see the activations. It shows you the cold start. It shows you the wait time and the amount of time it has taken as well. So you can see the hello world which we ran from the UI console, and this is the project as well which we ran here. So this is about how you can create a project. You can do a complicated project as well, and the layout of the project is important. And once it is done, you can use the Docker CLI to deploy your project as well. And you can even go back and see an overview of it. Let me just refresh. So it shows you the hello world which we created from the UI, and now it shows the sample hello which we have created as well. So I'll quickly show how you can. There's one more application, very interesting application which we can deploy, and that is the QR code generator. I already have it cloned. So let me go to the sample functions, which is there. This project is there in DigitalOcean public GitHub repository. What this project does is it generates a QR code for you, and you can the QR code is embedded. The text, whatever you can specify, is embedded in the project. So it's fairly simple project. So let's go ahead and then deploy this. So let's do the same. Yeah, we deploy. Yeah, just to deploy and dot. And the QR function is deployed. And in order for you to invoke that function, you can again do it from the CLI as well. So you do serverless functions, invoke QR, and what parameter you want to pass. So I want the QR code to embed hello, and I do that. And it gives me the response. So this is what, if I just copy this and go back here. And it gives me the QR code, and you can, when you scan this using your phone or whatever, it shows you hello. You can even extend this project by adding a front end. You can do a static site and have your front end connect to your backend and deploy everything in functions. So this is the first part of the demo. I'll just pause if there's any question. I see. Is there a way to pause a function? Pausing a function, I'm not sure what you mean by pausing a function, but the function, when it is done executing, it is technically going to be paused before you run it the next time. So once the function is executed, it is kind of marked as done. So the DigitalOcean Serverless platform actually takes care of pausing, unpausing, and doing all of it. So as a developer, you wouldn't have to worry about how to do that. So you can just write your code and it executes it on based on whatever events you wanted to trigger it on, and once it is done, you forget about it. Okay, that is the first part of the slide. I'll see if there's any more questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. So the second part, I'll just bring up the slides now. Is it possible to see error logs? Yes, you can see those error logs in the logs button here. You can also see it from the, like if I do QR, I don't know if we log anything, but yeah, if there's any error logs, so you can see here, there is this logs here. So you can see a standard error which is being printed here. So you can do it from the CLI as well. So you can, let me see if I can show it on the CLI activation. Just you can, sorry, activations list. So you can get the activation and you can get a particular activation ID, and I think the option is logs. Let me just check if that's there. Yeah, it's fine. So you can, because no, so this is the log. So I got confused, but this is the log from the function which is being printed. So you can, for every activation, you can do a -g from the CLI and you can see the logs. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Let me open the slide. Okay, in the second part of the demo, I'm going to be talking about how do you extend your existing containerized application by adding a functions component to an app platform. So I'm borrowing these slides from my colleague Moses. So I'll be talking about how you can, so you have an application already deployed and running somewhere, and now you want to add a functions component. So let's just get it. So what can you do? So the demo I gave before was using just the functions tab. Now this here I'm going to be talking about how you can add functions to your app platform. So what you can do with it, you can deploy a brand new API which is completely made up of functions. We showed that. You can add an API to your Jamstack app. So if you already have an app and which is deployed on your app platform and you want to add more APIs to it, you can do it. Here the third point also talks about the same. And let's say you have a bunch of APIs and you want to refactor them. So you want to convert those APIs to functions-based APIs. So you can do that by creating a project like I showed and adding your APIs as actions and slowly phasing out your older APIs to the newer ones. So I see a question. I just look at it. As a functions URL are public, is there a way to apply throttling by API to avoid calling the functions multiply? This is actually taken care of. So we do provide DDoS attack. We do provide protection from DDoS attack as well. So this is a good question. So we do. There is a number of limits as to how much you can control your activations, but I think the support can answer this better. So probably better reach out to support, and they might give you they might be able to answer it better. So okay, so what can you do? So going back, then you can modernize. So I talked about the refactoring as well. So why deploy functions to app platform? So declarative deployments. So if you have an app spec, you can be confident that the functions under the app spec also follow the same deployment. So everything, whatever is in your app spec is in your deployment. So it gives you a very clear one-to-one with the deployment and the spec. Single source of truth, your application, your functions will always stay up to date. It's always going to be, so because you are going to be, let's say, committing your code in GitHub and your functions are automatically deployed, you always know that your application always has the up-to-date functions deployed. No core settings. This is useful because both the functions and your applications are deployed in the same domain, so there's no reason for having to configure any cores. Organize complex apps. So like how I'll show in the demo, you can have your application having its own resources. You can have your front end with static size. You can have databases, and everything can fall under a single environment configuration as well. And everything falls under a single domain. And you can manage different components of your applications from a platform. And having functions is also one way of doing it. So the demo I'm going to be giving is a Django Python poll app. So by polling, I mean that you can ask a question and you can ask people to vote on it. So this is already there. This is already existing. So we will add an API to the we will add an API to this app, which will query the database and give you the number of questions which is there in the database. So if you have 5 questions which you have asked for polling, it returns 5 and it returns it in JSON format. So we already will. So let's just go in and I'll just demonstrate it. Let me bring up the demo. So this is a pre-recorded demo, so I'll not be doing it live. So Moses has recorded, so I'll just walk through the demo as well. So this is already there. You have a Django Pulse app, as I mentioned. It has few components, and we will be adding functions component to it. Here we are demonstrating the app. So we'll be adding a question with options. And now we will visit that site, and you can poll as to what based on the question you can poll. So now this is already there. So we'll add a functions component to this app. So as I explained, you can do it with doctal initialization. So that's what we are doing here. So you can specify the language as Python, and it creates a template for you. So we'll be renaming it to polls so that whatever the default template we have, we are going to be modifying it slightly. And we will just deploy the function. We want to first, before integrating with the app platform, let's test it out to make sure that it actually works. So we are connecting to the namespace. We will be deploying the project. The post list function is deployed, so we will get the URL, and by running the URL here, you will see the hello stranger message. So now we can get into adding the environment variable and making the changes there. So here we will be adding an environment variable to connect to the database. As I mentioned, we will be fetching from the database the number of questions. So we need the environment variable configured here, and this variable comes from the app platform as well. So in order to do that, we need to specify a .env file which will point to this URL. So we are doing this locally again, so we wouldn't have to do this when deploying it. So here we will be making the changes to use that environment variable. We'll remove the template boilerplate code here and just print the URL to make sure that it is the value which we expect it to be. Again, you will be redeploying it and getting the URL and doing HTTP, and you see the URL which is printed. So now we will go ahead and try and connect connect to the database. First, the URL has all the credentials, so we'll parse it out. We'll parse the username, password, and everything into a dictionary so that we can make the connection. So that's what it's being done here. So we are retrieving all of the information from the URL. We are setting the SSL mode as required, and we are going to be just returning the JSON, which is just the credentials, and that works. Note all of this is happening locally. We haven't integrated anything. So now we need PsychoPG to make the query. So we'll do a count from the database and we'll execute it. So this library is not present by default in the Python runtime. So we need to make sure that when you run the function, that it knows about this as well. So here we are returning the result as well. So it returns how many such questions are there in the database. Pretty simple query. So because the package is not there, we need the requirements.txt file, and we need to add that package in the requirements.txt file. And once you have the requirements, you need to specify, tell you a project that you need to do a pip install hyphen pip install of this project. So you do that by adding a build.sh file, which is what is being searched for here. So we need to add a build.sh executable file which instructs you to do a pip install. So there's some sample functions also which you can take a look. And here we are doing a virtual env and doing a pip install of that. We need main.py because that's what the serverless platform expects you to have. And we will be doing this remotely, so the deployment will happen remotely, where it manages all the requirement as well. So we don't have to do anything. So make sure that the build.sh is an executable or it's going to fail. And yeah, because we added a question, it showed one. So let's add one more question. Try it again. The question is 2. So it's working. So we did create a standalone project. Now we need to integrate into our app platform. So we need to add it to our GitHub. So we are initializing the GitHub repository and committing the entire package to GitHub. And then we will use this repository in our app platform. So we go to apps and we create a resource. We add the repository which we just created. We change the route to /API because that's the route we want. And we create the resource. So it takes a while to build. So I'll just give you an overview as to what we are doing here. So we created a project template from the CLI. We tested it out. We connected it to the database. We were able to deploy and create an API. We were able to test the API to make sure that it is working fine. And then we added the project into our GitHub. We created a new GitHub repository and we added the project there. And finally, we were able to integrate that. And now, by adding it into the app platform, we are able to build the function. So we'll just see whether that works. Just skip to the end where the build is done. Yeah, the build went live. So this is the API which is a part of the new function. So we are adding it as a trusted source to make sure that it is safe. The first request will fail because it takes a while before it passes. And again, so we have successfully integrated an API from functions into the backend. So yeah, that's about all. That's all I have from the demo side. So I'll just see if I have any questions. Can you apply a pretty URL to a function? For instance, assign my custom domain name to. We don't support it yet. I don't think we can do that. Do that now currently. This database for the Django example is also scale to 0 or request per billing. I think it is request. It is. I think it is scale to 0. It's not a serverless database. It's a managed database which we have created from DigitalOcean. So would have to create it, and it is from scale to 0. I have been drifting around, so I maybe missed something. It seems that pole FX is on functions. The rest of Django is on apps. Yeah, that's right. So we just added one single function, which is to get the count of number of questions in from the database. The rest all is already a Django app which is deployed on apps. That's correct.
Okay, thanks, Nikhil. That was super hands-on and really good session. If we have, this is the Q&A part that I was talking about. While we have the expert in house, please let us know if there are any other questions that Nikhil could address about the function, about the product. We would just wait a couple of moments here. I know we are almost at time, but we'll wait a couple of moments to see if there are any other questions from the audience. Right. In the meanwhile, this is the, just a second. Yeah, we have a question.
So won't be any time. So I have a question. So won't be any time soon before we fully run Django on purely functions. For functions, you don't really need to have Django because Django is mostly serverful. So you can deploy your Python code as is, like how. So you can pull out the parts from your Django applications or the APIs and refactor them into functions without really needing to have it in run in Django. So you can do it per function or per API basis and stitch together all the functions to form a complete set of functional APIs. Can you run scheduled functions? I mean, not triggered by URL. It's there in the pipeline. We can um, it should be available soon. It's a work in progress, but we are going to be supporting scheduled functions. If I don't use a function, can I disable it or have delete it? Yeah, you can. I mean, if you have a function which you don't use, you can use the CLI to delete your function and disable it. But if it is not running, you won't be charged anyway. So you can just leave it as it is if you are not using it. It's only on call would be for every invocation would you be have to worry about it. But if you are not going to use it, you can remove it from your project.yaml file and you can delete it from your Git and it just goes away in the next deployment.
Any other questions that we might have? In the meanwhile, what we're doing is we are sharing the page of DO functions in the comment, and you can, of course, check out the product. You can check out the complete details of it and any other requirement you might have. We also have a DO functions challenge live. Just a second, I think we have another question. Yeah.
Do you offer a permanent serverless database that functions can connect to? We don't do that yet, but it is we are thinking about it. Right now, you just have functions, but we do want to provide a complete suite of serverless applications which require you to connect the functions to, and database is one such requirement. So we do have that requirement, just not ready yet.
Thanks, John. And we also have a functions challenge that is live. It should be a very interesting visit. Do check it out. Here is the link for the same. And we have 2 minutes. Is there any last minute questions? Any other doubts you might have? We'll just wait another minute for that. All right, I think we are at time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We do hope you liked this session and it was informative for you. If you can have any doubts, you can share it in the links which we've just shared. You can share some support. You can share know more about our product. And thank you, Nikhil. That was an amazing session. And all right, we will see you guys soon. Thank you and have a good day, good afternoon, good night. Take care. Bye-bye.